Hello, Brobs. We're back with the Golem Remembered, 1909 to 1980, Variations of a Jewish Legend by Arnold L. Goldsmith. We return to page 43. The Golem and his mission. Readers of monster literature and science fiction have always been fascinated by detailed descriptions of sorcerers and scientists attempting to animate the dead, discover the elixir of life, or create human beings out of inanimate matter. Rosenberg does not disappoint his readers in Chapter 8, How Rabbi Leva Created the Golem. Rabbi Cohen explains that when his father-in-law was uncertain how to combat Thaddeus, he directed a dream question to God. The answer comes back alphabetically in Hebrew. By clay, destroy evil forces. Golem, help Israel, justice. Rabbi Leva understands at once that he can create a golem with the magic power inherent in the combination of these 10 words. Emmanuel Ben Gurion, the editor of Mimikor Ish Yisrael, classical Jewish folktales, in retelling the same legend, supplies a different example of heaven's alphabetical answer to Rabbi Leva. And B, creating, dedicate earth fittingly, Golem handles Israel's Jew-hating knife bearers. According to Ben Gurion, the literal translation of the Hebrew is, you create a golem of adhesive material that shall cut off strangers, the horde who rend Israel. For the difficult task ahead, Rabbi Leva selects 2 assistants, his son-in-law and Jacob ben Chaim Sassoon Levi, his leading student. In Kabbalistic tradition, more than one mind is usually required in the study of sacred texts. Rabbi Leva swears them to secrecy and explains that he chose them because Isaac has been under the sign of fire and Jacob under the sign of water. Rabbi Leva himself had been born under the sign of air, so with the earth used to form the golem, all 4 required elements would be present. In the month of Adar in the year 5340, 1580, the 3 men very early one morning walked to the Moldau River. There they shape a man of clay, 3 cubits long, lying on his back. Isaac gives his eyewitness report. Then all 3 of us stood at the feet of the reclining golem, with our faces to his face, and the rabbi commanded me to circle the golem 7 times from the right side to the head, from the head to the left side, and then back to the feet, and he told me the formula to speak. So I circled the golem 7 times, and when I had done the rabbi's bidding, the golem turned as red as fire. Next, the rabbi commanded his pupil Jacob Sassoon to do the same as I had done, but he revealed different formulas to him. This time the fiery redness was extinguished, and a vapor arose from the supine figure, which had grown nails and hair. Now the rabbi walked around the golem 7 times with the Torah scrolls, like the circular procession in synagogue at New Year's. And then, in conclusion, all 3 of us together recited the verse, and the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. At this moment the golem's eyes open, and Rabbi Leva commands him to stand. The 3 men dress him in the clothes of a beetle, and return home by 6 the same morning. Rabbi Leva names the golem Joseph because, as he explains to his companions, he had given him the spirit of Joseph Shaddai, who was half man and half demon, and who had helped the Talmudic sages in times of great trouble. Rabbi Leva explains to Joseph that he must obey his every command, even if it means jumping into fire or water. The golem cannot speak, but has remarkable acute hearing. At home, the rabbi informs his family that he found the poor mute simpleton in the street and has decided to employ him as another beetle. I hope it's beetle, not beetle, but beetle. He strictly forbade anyone else from ever giving him any orders. The next two stories complete this section and provide the only comic interlude in the remainder of the collection. They lower the tension after the awesome details just recorded and relax the reader in preparation for the blood libels, intrigue, Gothicism, supernaturalism, and violence to come. Chapter 9, The Golem Carries Water at Passover, is a Jewish version of Goethe's Sorcerer's Apprentice. The narrator tells how Pearl disobeys the rabbi and commands the golem to fetch water from the river to fill 2 buckets for the Passover holiday. Because no one supervises his work, Joseph keeps filling the buckets to overflowing, flooding the house until Rabbi Levi arrives to stop him. And Joseph the golem goes fishing at New Year's. The narrator tells how Joseph is sent to catch fish for Rosh Hashanah when there wasn't even a minnow in all Prague. Again, Joseph is forgotten until the other beetle, Abraham Chaim, is sent to fetch him home. As the beetle conveys the rabbi's orders for him to come right away, the obedient Joseph takes his almost filled sack and empties it into the river. Everyone in Rabbi Levi's household is greatly amused by the simple-mindedness of this strange fellow, and the rabbi realizes that the golem was made for loftier purposes. After the 3-paragraph transition to the serious tales, Rosenberg groups 3 of his 4 stories directly involving the blood libel. The first, chapter 12, is about Joseph saving the moneylender Mordecai Mazel, named after the Prague merchant, who in real life was a dear friend of Rabbi Lowe. Joseph intercepts the Christian butcher, who is planning to plant the body of a dead child in Mazel's house so that he will not have to pay a debt of 5,000 crowns. Despite the happy outcome, this tale ends on an ominous note of suspense as Father Thaddeus realizes who controls Joseph and bends his entire heart and soul on a war against Rabbi Levi and all the Jews of Prague. The second of these tales, chapter 13, is the longest and most ambitious so far. It tries to combine 2 subjects, one involving a licentious 15-year-old Jewess who seeks out Father Thaddeus for conversion. The other involves a Christian woman from the country who lights the stoves for the urban Jews on the Sabbath, but suddenly runs away from her main employer before Passover. Thaddeus gets the Jewish apostate to start the blood libel against Rabbi Levi and his 2 beetles. He makes her claim that the missing Christian heating woman supplied the blood which they needed, but the cardinal secretly informs the rabbi of the plot against him, giving him a month before the trial to find the evidence needed to prove his innocence. First, he hides Joseph and the substitute, and substitutes another bearded mute to be arrested in his place. Then he sends several messengers to different villages to search for the missing girl, but after 12 days they return empty-handed. In desperation, Rabbi Levi turns to Joseph, who knows the girl, and sends him to find her, with money and a letter pleading with her to return and tell the truth. 2 weeks later, with Joseph still gone, the trial begins and a threatening mob gathers outside the courthouse. As both the prosecution and the defense have difficulty questioning the mute, who does not understand what is happening, the convert is asked to testify. And she incriminates Rabbi Levi, her own father, who had left Prague 2 weeks earlier, and the 2 beetles even suggesting that they killed the missing heating woman also. As in the typical melodrama, just when things are looking blackest for the side of good and innocence, a commotion is heard outside the courthouse as Joseph miraculously arrives with the missing woman, whose testimony defeats Father Thaddeus and the frightened convert. All ends happily in fairy tale fashion. The presiding judge kissed Rabbi Levi on the forehead and thanked him for his energetic labor and great wisdom, which had prevented the judge from falsely convicting pure souls. Chapter 14 has nothing to do with the blood libel. It is an even longer, more complicated story involving Father Thaddeus' secret attempt to convert the lovely and learned daughter of a Jewish wine merchant. The plot, which is too complicated for a tale under 10 pages, involves intrigue, matchmaking, secret identities, a young duke who falls in love with the girl, and a reluctant Rabbi Leva who at first does not want to get involved with Thaddeus. The Golem is sent into action when Rabbi Leva makes him invisible and has him deliver a note to the girl while pretending he is the spirit of her grandfather. Prior to his rescuing her from the churchyard where Thaddeus has been hiding her. All right, that's great cadence. The focus of the tale shifts from the wine merchant's daughter to the young duke, who converts to Judaism. The locale shifts from Prague to Venice to Amsterdam until the young couple are finally united and their true identities revealed in the conventional happy ending. The next story, a very wondrous tale about a blood libel which spelled defeat for Father Thaddeus, is especially important to the student of the Golem of Prague legend, not only because of its intrinsic merit, but also because it provided much of the inspiration for Levik's remarkable verse drama 12 years later. The Gothic setting, which apparently fascinated the poet, is a large haunted house. Known as the five-sided palace because it had 5 walls facing 5 streets. In front of each wall there were 5 columns, and in between the columns there were 5 windows. On top of the mansion there were 5 large towers with ancient figures, which were obviously from the days when men worshipped the sun. Beneath this ancient ruin is a haunted cellar connected to an underground cavern leading to the cellar of a church. At the time of the story, this ancient ruin is inhabited only by Jewish beggars. With this mysterious setting, the Gothic machinery of the story is set into motion. In the great synagogue next to the palace, Rabbi Leva is puzzled when the candle goes out before he can pronounce the annulment of leaven for the first day of deliverance. Each time the beadle relights the candle, it goes out again. As the badly frightened beadle begins to recite the annulment, he unconsciously substitutes the word 5 for have and then repeats this strange error. Rabbi Leva immediately recognizes the omen and can interpret the nightmare he had the night of the great Sabbath before Passover. In the nightmare, the 5-sided palace was on fire, and the flames were threatening the Jews crowded into the synagogue. The rabbi had awakened screaming. The dream message has revealed that an enemy of the Jews is preparing a blood libel in the ruined mansion. When the beadle suddenly remembers that the underground cavern leads to Father Thaddeus' church, the enemy is evident. The narrator then explains how Thaddeus, frustrated by Rabbi Leva's having defeated his attempt to convert the Jewess in the last tale, killed the child of one of his servants, poured its blood into small vials marked with Jewish names, including those of the rabbi and his family, and hid them in the cellar under the palace. Meanwhile, the police have been tipped off to search the Jewish quarter. At this point, Rosenberg has the narrator intrude with the pious optimism that colors so many of these tales. The message for the troubled Jews of Eastern Europe in the first decade of the 20th century is unmistakable. Though things look black, it is written in Psalms, "Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep." This means that the good Lord never sleeps. He watches over his nation, the Jews. That very night, after the inspection for leaven and midnight prayers, Rabbi Leva, Joseph, and the beadle stealthily enter the 5-sided palace. Only the recitation of special prayers protects them from barking dogs and a sudden wind that blows out their candles. Because of stones falling from the ceiling, Rabbi Leva has to send the Golem on a loan to search for suspicious objects. Before long, Joseph returns with the body of the dead child wrapped in a prayer shawl and with a basket containing 30 vials of blood labeled with Hebrew letters. Rabbi Leva instructs Joseph to hide the body in Thaddeus' wine cellar and to smash the vials and bury them there also. When the police arrive to search the Jewish quarter on the day before Passover, accompanied by Father Thaddeus and many soldiers, they can find nothing. In a few days, As Easter approaches, the servant of Father Thaddeus, annoyed by a foul smell, discovers the body of his murdered child in the wine cellar. The police recognize at once the villainy of Father Thaddeus, who tries in vain to deny the whole story. He finally confesses, is arrested, tried, convicted, and banished forever. With the villainous Thaddeus removed from the scene, the reader might expect a letdown, with 6 stories still to come to complete the long 4th section. This is not the case, as the Golem performs many wondrous feats. In Chapter 16, his supernatural ability to converse with the dead enables him to stop a wedding, preventing a brother from marrying his sister. Thankfully, good little Golem. The Golem even brings to the rabbinical court the spirit of the key witness, the long-dead midwife Esther, who is placed behind a screen to testify that she switched 2 babies at birth out of compassion for one of 2 sisters-in-law who had only girls, some of whom failed to survive. Esther pleads from the grave for forgiveness after 12 years of regret. Even this story has a happy ending, as Rabbi Leva gets the fathers-in-law to agree to a new wedding with the same bride. Once again, the fairy tale ends conventionally. The young couple lived to a ripe old age in Prague, and their life together was very happy. In one of the shortest but most interesting tales, Joseph is able to interpret a puzzling answer from heaven to one of Rabbi Leva's dream questions. When a congregant drops the Torah scrolls on Yom Kippur, the rabbi is sure that this is an ill omen. Unable to understand the message in Hebrew which he receives from heaven, he writes out the letters of the reply on separate pieces of paper, and the Golem instinctively places them correctly to reveal the first letter of each word from the Torah passage read that morning in the synagogue. The passage is a prohibition against committing adultery with one's neighbor's wife, and the Rabbi Leva knows immediately that this is his congregant's sin and punishes him accordingly. Chapter 18 is one of the most unusual in that Joseph is attacked by a group of men who throw him down a well and stone him. The leader of these men received a public whipping at Rabbi Leva's command because he had violated the rabbi's edict against slandering certain Jewish families for not having a pure Jewish bloodline. Even a Golem can be bruised to the extent that it takes him 3 days to recuperate. Rabbi Leva refuses to allow Joseph to get revenge on his attacker, who soon after dies a horrible death from black mange. In the 3 stories which end the 5th section, Rabbi Leva takes on a therapist's role and cures a man from barking like a dog in his sleep after he has been chased by a huge black dog near a haunted house. Joseph is made invisible to pretend to be a spirit of a dead father writing to his anti-Semitic son, a duke, revealing to him his Jewish heritage. And, in a complicated story on the blood libel theme, Joseph's preternatural ability to discern spirits of the dead hovering over their graves the first year after burial enables him to save an innocent wealthy Jew accused of murdering a former employee, and thus saves the whole Jewish community from a pogrom. It is at the end of this chapter 21 that Rabbi Leva revisits King Rudolph and pleads with him to end the blood libel once and for all. Again, the reader is not told Rudolph's words, but the imperial decree is issued. The Death of the Golem. The last chapter of New Grosschel's translation of Rosenberg's little book tells how Rabbi Leva removed Joseph the Golem on the night of Lag Biomer, I don't know what that is, in the year 1590. In this version, the Golem is no longer needed. His mission is completed. Rosenberg ignores earlier versions of Golem legends in which the clay creature becomes a threat to his creator. If Joseph the Golem is intended to boost the morale of European Jewry still facing the daily threat of persecution, it will not do to have him go dangerously berserk and threaten the Jewish community, as he does in the stories by Bloch, Levick, and Rothberg. The death of Rosenberg's Golem is treated as briefly as his creation. Isaac and Jacob accompany Rabbi Levi to the attic of the Alt-New synagogue, where the rabbi has told Joseph to take his bed this night. Rosenberg seems to have forgotten that this is a first-person narration and assumes the role of the omniscient author. If Isaac is the narrator, it seems unlikely that he would refer to himself as the Gaon, which he does. At first, Rabbi Levi is troubled by the violation of Jewish law in having a Cohen present in the same room as a corpse, since such a thing was forbidden to a descendant of priests. But then he decides that such a corpse is not really a defilement. The rabbi makes another exception and allows the faithful beadle, Abraham Chaim, to witness the scene. In the attic, Rabbi Levi, Isaac, and Jacob take positions opposite to the ones they had taken when creating the Golem. This time they face his feet and then circle to the left. They recite words which they have to repeat 7 times. After the 7 encirclements, the Golem was dead. There is no need to remove an aleph from his forehead or the name of God from his mouth, as in other versions of this tale, because they had never been there in the first place. Then the men removed the Golem's clothes, leaving only his shirt, and covered him with old prayer shawls. Next, they shoved him under a mountain of stray leaves from holy books, so that he was fully hidden. Abraham Chaim is instructed to burn Joseph's bed and clothes secretly. A week later, Rabbi Levi issues a ban on anyone's going up to the attic. No longer can loose pages of prayer books be stored there, it is said, because of the danger of fire. Only a few wise men in the Jewish quarter know the real reason. It is hard to defend Yudl Rosenberg against criticism that his writing in Nifla'at Macharol im Ha-Golem is too journalistic, too matter-of-fact, and uninspired in the handling of some details, too tendentious in stating others. The one-dimensional pop quality of the writing, which Neugroschow complained of, is a fair objection. What with Rosenberg's preference for stock character types, for example, the Jewish, a Christian butcher, the healer, and the healer's daughter, the porter, the courier, his minimal use of dialogue and strong preference for indirect discourse, and his silly inventions such as the judge's kissing Rabbi Levi at the end of the wondrous tale of the healer's daughter. Nevertheless, there is something to be said in Rosenberg's favor. In retelling and recording many popular legends, he resurrected for 20th century readers a new folk hero, organized his incredible adventures in such a way as to enhance the Maharal's reputation as a religious scholar, mystical miracle worker, and elder statesman who won the respect of the imperial court. To European Jewry, soon to be faced by a madman far more dangerous than any Father Thaddeus, Yudl Rosenberg gave hope for a redeemer sent by God to lead them out of the Holocaust. All right, Brobs. A lot of this is hard for me to follow since I don't know any of it, but beginning to understand. We shall return next time with Yudl Rosenberg and Chaim Bloch's Twice Told Tales. Goodbye, Rob. Goodbye.